engineering, and this is my first year in this program. So over the period, I had an opportunity to work on two projects, but for my capstone, I was working on um, a data risk pricing model with our sponsor, Dele Atande. I don't know if I can like share my screen right now so that I can start my project
You
officially.
can share your screen. Go ahead.
Oh, thank you. So the project which if I do this. Okay. So yeah, it was pricing data and risk, and my instructor was Patrick Zoro. So our sponsor was MetaMe. So okay, so this is just a project overview. So my project is I'm going to discuss the project overview and what I worked on, which is the creation process, how I managed to automate the whole process, which is the my main task on the project, how I managed to come up with the algorithm and a financing example, which is like how I'm gonna be using the algorithm. So, so on this project, my main assignment was to come up with a curation framework, which I started with, and then to automate it. But basically, the project itself, our sponsor is trying to come up with an exchange for data where he'll be selling that data to the people who wants to use it. So initially, he gave us a data set which consists with a whole lot of information with a lot of records. So the first thing which we need to do is to pull out those records and then aggregate them into small data sets, which we call iCubes. After that, we then give them a price, a risk, a risk score. After scoring the risk on that data set, we then go ahead to give it a certain price. So the first step on this project is the curation, which is the aggregation of the data sets. And the second step is to give the data set a risk score. And the third step is to give it a price. So our main tools right now on this project, we are using Python and Excel. So as I mentioned earlier on, the curation process, I'm actually looking on that one. And the risk scoring part, Amit Rajendra is my teammate who is looking into that. And the pricing part right now, Tololo Peshwaga is looking into that. So this is the curation process. So this is the process which which takes us through the aggregating of the data sets. Like when you get when we get the whole a big data set, we have to check to identify some records which can fulfill a certain intent. So this is this is the a diagrammatic representation of the curation process. The first thing we need to do is to understand the intent. The intent is the use case, like what are we going to be using the data which we are aggregating on. And the second thing is to clarify what the intent is. So when it comes to intent clarification, we need to really know what uh, when we understand the intent, we need to clarify the intent as in what this intent is. So initially we have two groups of intents. So the first one is the common intent, and the second one is the novice intent. So the novice intent is these are the intents which we are not like quite familiar with in the business world. And the familiar one are those are kind of intents which have been tried um to be fulfilled previously. So third step is data collection. When it comes to data collection, is collecting the data which we can find outside our own databases. Because as a firm, it has its own database, the data which is going to be sold to data users. But before that, before we go into our database, we need to go outside and check if we can find some of the information which we might need to fulfill that intent. And the fourth step is to select the records from our databases. So after we collected data from the outside, we then come into our databases and then select the records which we think and which we feel can actually fulfill the given intent. Um, okay, so um, the step one, like I have mentioned earlier on, is understanding the data seeker's intent, and this, like what I said earlier on, this is the main reason, the motive, why we need to collect and provide this data. So it guides us on what to look for. So initially, when we are like in real world, when we are doing this manually, you have to just gather like in a boardroom and start discussing about like what the data user intends to achieve. So for example, let's say the data user wants to roll out a car financing product. So the some of the information, the records which he might need is the name, the address, the GOB, and the proof of identification, address, social security, telephone number, marital status, and something like that. So the intent clarification. So for us to provide the information which is needed to fulfill that intent, that's where we need to clarify so that we know which approach we can take, like so or when we are aggregating the data set. And then the data collection, we need to first collect the samples from the outside that we feel they align with what we are trying to achieve and what we are trying to fulfill. So that when we get to collect those samples, that's when we have like a big data set which includes some of the irrelevant records. And then after that, we go back and trying to understand the underlying model of our initial intent. And then on the fourth step, that's when we then do use some selection techniques like backward elimination and forward selection in trying to collect the records from our database. So this is the algorithm. When it comes to the automation, we have this algorithm. This is actually the framework where we have some inputs. So inputs can come up in forms of sound or text files or any other files. And then we had to put them into a generative AI so that we come up with a structured input. So when we have a structured, so this is like a structure which will be accepted by our scraper. We come up with a scraper it automates the third part, and usually the third part, where we'll be selecting we will start looking for for data from the outside databases. So the outside databases will include, we have our local database, but then we go ahead and search for the information on the cloud and on the internet. And then we do the forward selection to extract the data, the records which we'll be selling to our data user. We also do the visualization of it. But so what the algorithm do, is when it takes the data from the outside, it then visualize it so that we have an understanding of what the scraper has found from outside. And then we do the similarities scores with the we do the similarity scores with our internal database so that we select the actual records which can fulfill the intent. After that, so this is only the curation process. After the curation process, the extracted records will be stored in a database which will be placed in a risk scoring model. So I just realized my time is off. Thank you so much. Professor, can I